In today's episode, Peter asks, do you know any good case studies or examples how to promote a company when it's still in a stealth mode and it's preparing to launch, for promoting it as soon as it's out of the stealth mode? So there are. This is an interesting question because a lot has changed. In the old days, it was really easy. You would go and get some funding and then buy a list, and then as soon as you were ready to go, you hit the list and off you go. With the launch of GDPR earlier in 2018, that's no longer a viable strategy because that's a violation of GDPR. One of the things that GDPR says is you may not use customer data in a way that the customer has not explicitly allowed you to do so. And so buying a list, no good. In general, you can't buy lists anymore. It is a prohibited practice. And now with some of the new privacy laws coming around in the United States, that will be the case even for companies that are solely within the United States. So what do? The answer today needs to be you need to bring in other first-party audiences, and that comes from influencers. You would need to work with an influencer that is topically appropriate and say to them, hey, I'm getting ready to launch a startup. We're still in stealth mode. There's nothing to promote. Can I first publish and disclose that I've got a stealth mode startup if you're interested in hearing about it? Can I post a blog or run a YouTube video or whatever the case may be? And then also get the influencer to work with you to permit tracking on their digital properties for your startup. And it would say something along the lines, when all these sites now have these little pop-ups to say, here's how we use cookies. It would go into the privacy policy. It would go into the cookie policy. It would say one of the provisions is by allowing cookies, you are also opting into select retargeting offers. And that's and for those consumers then who give their permission to have their information have their profiles be tracked, that's then how you would start to build up that audience, because you would get all these influencers who are giving permission to you to track their audiences, and then when it comes time, you launch with that audience. It really, really helps as a startup if one of your influencers happens to also be one of the people who work at the company, because then it reduces that friction substantially. When we launched Trust Insights earlier this year, one of the core platforms that we used to launch the company was my mailing list, my YouTube channel, my Twitter channel, and so on and so forth. Personally, I've been building these channels for 15 years. And as a result, when we were able to launch, when we came out of stealth mode, there was a ready-made audience of 25 to 100,000 people, depending on which platform you look at, to immediately appeal to, which substantially reduced the amount of time it took to get up and running. If you don't have access to influencers, then you have to go with advertising, and you have to go with high spend, high frequency, targeted still, but on the day of launch, and hope that your advertising is compelling. And you're going to follow then Bob Stone's direct marketing rules, right? List, offer, creative. Do you have the right audience, which is the list? Do you have the right audience that you're advertising to? So you might be using Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever the case is. Do you have the right offer for that audience, saying this is what we want to promote that would be of interest to the audience? And this is really important because those two things, the list and the offer, have to be in sync. If you're a startup that's offering frying pans, but your list is people who hate cooking, it's going to be a bad time, right? So those two have to be in sync, and then the creative has to be something appealing that will get through to what people want to see and hear. So it may not be AdWords, for example. It may not be Facebook ads. It could very well be demos on YouTube. The catch, if you don't have that advanced audience list set up, is that you have to accelerate your spend And really, in the first week after launch, you have to hit every possible channel as hard as possible and spend a lot of budget. An easy way to think about this is if you have a launch month, think about launching the last week of the month, but having that entire month's worth of ad budget that you've allocated be spendable in that last week, and then you ramp down the following week in the new month to what your average monthly spend would be across the month, in order to try and capture as much attention as possible. Because for that first period of launch, in order to be seen over other advertisers, you have to outbid them, and depending on how competitive your sector is, you may have to outbid them substantially. So that's the general process. And the third thing that is possible is that you can work with media relations and a public relations firm to obtain press coverage under embargo for your company. Here's the catch. Most journalists are not interested in writing about stealth mode companies, even at launch, because there's a gajillion and a half of these, and most of them don't survive. And if they can't get the details about why the company is compelling, it's going to be very difficult to write a story that's available on time. And two, unless your company and your product and your service is really, really noteworthy, like Tesla noteworthy, or Apple noteworthy, no one's going to care, right? Yet another startup launches with yet another thing event, and it's founder's bias. You may think it's revolutionary, or else is like, yawn, seen that before, or they may not even understand what it is you offer. And so obtaining coverage for your startup is very difficult. Whatever you do, don't waste money on a press release. It's a horrible idea. They're expensive and they do almost nothing. So influencers up front before launch, and then advertising, pedal to the metal that first week. Spend that month's budget, and that first week to cut through the noise. Those are the two best ways to get going. You're not going to be able to rely on things like SEO, because if you're in stealth mode, by default, you don't have any content available, right? So you will want to publish all your content the day you can go public, and make sure you do all the technical SEO things that get you ready for launch, and get your site indexed sooner rather than later, because Google's algorithm now no longer has like 90-day waiting periods for things. It is within the day. But that's not a channel that's going to help you right away. It really is going to come down to influencers, advertising, and then maybe some media relations. But focus on that influencer side. If you can get those influencers on board, you'll do okay. As always, if you have questions, please leave them in the comments, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel and the newsletter. Talk to you soon.
Want help solving your company's data analytics and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.